Poe.
Well, Brandon, thanks so much for graciously sharing some of your time, because I know, especially when I went and looked at the inventory you have of practices for sale in various states, they're all gone. So you've got to be busy, and you've got to have a machine that is really working well. So I hope you'll share that with our audience as to, what have you seen work well? I'm going to give you that seed question, but would you mind sharing just, how you got where you are now? Where were you, I don't know, 5, 10, 15? Is it 25 years ago?
Yeah, I've been selling CPA firms since 2003. And my background was I'm a CPA and I started my career at Ernst and Young and left E&Y and went to work for a regional firm because I actually liked the smaller business. I enjoyed working with small business. And so they were a pretty large regional firm. But that's where I started my public practice career. And then I went to work in sales with a family friend. He and his dad had a small company selling kind of like a Ferguson competitor, like plumbing, bath. We sold bathtubs. We called on builders and plumbers and developers, and so I did the accounting for that little business and I started doing sales work and I really enjoyed the sales work. And
Hmm.
it's not for everybody. There's a lot of rejection involved and I uh I was persistent, didn't seem to phase me too much. Um and if you can call on builders and plumbers, you can probably call on anybody. So um
Why didn't it phase you?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you. I had to work. Like when I was growing up, my parents always made me work. So I worked, I mowed lawns when I was a kid. I had a paper route when I was a kid. I worked jobs in high school. I worked in college. So I'd always worked and I'd had a lot of really just a variety of different work experience by the time I had a professional career at E&Y. And so I guess I was a little bit, you know, little gritty, I developed grit from a young age.
Did it have anything to do with the fact that you knew what Ferguson had to offer, and you knew you had something better to offer?
There was certainly that. We were kind of a small independent that actually competed with Ferguson, but and I did. It was a family business, so I was very, close with the owners and the family, and we did, our thing was service. It was all about the service. And um for a plumber, for instance, if they order a long materials list for plumbing for a house or for a commercial building, and they get on the site and they're missing something, well, that slows them down. That costs them money because then their production gets off. And so we were very good about um, whatever we were pack how we would pack the order was very accurate. We focused on accuracy, and if we didn't have something, we would point that out to the contractor so they could go somewhere else and make a small order and find what they needed. So it was all about service, and I think to this day, people who realize the value of good service realize paying more for it can actually save you a great deal of money. It's more valuable.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, absolutely. So, from that experience, when did you decide to sell CPA firms?
Well, I accidentally got into that. So, I did so I got exposed to mergers and acquisitions through a business that I was a partner in. So I was a partner in a when we had the plumbing business, we decided to go into the marble tops and stone tops business, because we already had the customer base. We figured, hey, we could start a manufacturing
Right.
facility, and we actually did that. We started a manufacturing facility, and I
Hmm.
was a partner in that business, and this was in my 20s.
Hmm.
And so I was lucky I got exposed to this stuff really early on. And then we decided to sell that business. And so I went through this whole process of selling a business as an owner, so I experienced it as an owner of a business
And a CPA.
and a CPA. And I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. And I liked it. So um fast forward years later, I thought about buying a CPA firm in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I'm based. And I was in my early 30s, had three small children, um, and my wife was staying at home to raise our children. And I was at a CPE conference with a friend of mine who had bought a CPA firm in Columbia, South Carolina. And he says, you should call this guy. All he does is sell CPA firms. So I thought, maybe I can find one in Charleston because I wanted to have my own business. I had been in partnerships and realized like I really want something I can control. And anyway, I got back home the next day after that conference and I called the wrong guy. So I called this guy that was starting a brokerage, um, didn't have anybody in my area, and he just wrote me back. He says, "You want to sell CPA firms?" I'm like, "Huh, maybe I do." So I got on a plane, flew to flew to him, and he signed me up. He later sold his company, and that's how Poe Group Advisors got started.
Wow.
Once that founder left, um, started our brand, and but I took to it right away. I really enjoyed the sales piece, and it married the accounting knowledge with the sales knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So we cross paths, you unbeknownst to you, because you drag a chum trail out there of coaching. So as a budding coach, I want to know what does coaching mean to, what's the deliverable, how to compete, all that good stuff. Uh, but as part of that's not really what you do. You do that as kind of a incubator.
Well, so we started that program. I am a big believer in coaching.
Hmm.
So I signed on with a group called Strategic Coach
Yeah.
back in 2009, down
Who,
Selvins
who,
Creek.
who is your coach?
Adrian Duffy is my coach
Still,
still. Yep.
still. How many years you in?
16.
Wow.
So
Wow.
um I was just at coach this past week, and I know the value in it. I know how it helps you grow your business. I know how it works. And so I've always been a believer in that. And then I helped start an EO chapter in Charleston. Um, Me and two other guys started the chapter here, which
Hmm.
if you don't know about EO, it's Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a worldwide
Yeah.
volunteer run
Yeah.
uh, peer-to-peer learning group.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and it's that's also been valuable. Just, there's so many things that you can learn from others who've had different experiences. If you go back to like some of the really early self-development books, like Think and Grow Rich,
I've got them all, man.
they all say join a mastermind, join a mastermind. You want to be a part of something like that because it's just has this exponential effect on your business. And not just that, on your life. Being in a community is extremely valuable, and humans are meant to be in communities. And so I had this vision of like, you know, well, back up a little bit. I wrote a book in 2010 called Accountant's Flight Plan. And this book was written essentially from my brokerage experience. So what I would do is I was always interested in how what made businesses work, what made them tick. And I kept a journal. Like if a client, if I had a client that was selling, for instance, like I remember this one gentleman in Virginia that we sold his practice. He was just a smart guy. I got his P&L, and that's the thing is I see P&Ls on CPA firms all the time. So I have I have that sort of privy to see how they're actually performing. And I
Mhm.
knew this guy knew how to run a practice, right? Because he was profitable, his hours were fairly low, he had great clients, good team, like he had all the boxes ticked. And so whenever I would have a client like that, um, I would just ask him like, had nothing to do with the sale of their business. I just was genuinely curious, like, how did you get it to your team to where they're so good, and they would tell me like, oh, well, I tell you, a lot of them tell me they are very good delegators. I remember I had one client, he says when a team member comes and asks him a question, his first response was like, I don't know. That's what I pay you to do. You figure that. What do you think the answer is? And he would turn them around, and then basically he said, look, you can ask me questions, but you need to have three answers ready to go, and you pick your favorite one. He said, 9 times out of 10, they don't come to you because they figured it out before they asked you the question. And then, anyway, so, I see these patterns. They're good delegators. They're good billers. They're just, there's some things that are very common threads.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, I've seen some less than desirable practices. I've seen some low performing businesses, and those have common patterns too. So I got really interested in that sort of that process,
Mhm.
and I kept notes for years. And then my wife one day said, "You should put this into a book." And I'm like, yeah, I probably should. You're right. And so that's when I wrote Accountant's Flight Plan. And that got published by the American Institute of CPAs, and it got picked up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it got picked up by CPA Canada.
Wow.
And so that was like, man, I've got something here that people need. And um, so I wanted to turn that into some kind of program. And that's how we created Accounting Practice Academy. And that was launched in 2020. And it's a fully virtual program.
Mhm.
Um, but it works.
It's fully virtual as in, let me get this off of the screen. Fully virtual as in, what do they call it, learning? Or is there a person involved in leading each session?
Well, no, it's fully virtual, so it's a combination of videos, a combination of exercises, homework, if you will, and then there's a mastermind component that's meets virtually with firm owners all over North America.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, as you're talking, I'm just catching little things. So we will, I've already said it, but I'm going to say it again. And you're answering the question without really just following the question, because you've seen firms from all angles and status and growth. And what is the difference between the $1 to $2 million firms and the $5 to $10 million firms? And how, if they want to get from here to there. And I heard you say delegator, and then we're both graduates. You're not a graduate. I'm alumni of Strategic Coach. You're continuing to go there. My biggest challenge was when I came home with all this wonderful stuff to get it into the common
Yeah.
and I've still got I didn't throw away the books. I've got some of them right there. But and I think are those all knowledge products up there on your shelf?
Some of them are these here were all those are all Dan Sullivan's little books that he writes every quarter and hands out. Yeah.
I rebuy them when I lose them or give them away or whatever, or they because they're anyway, that's a whole nother topic, isn't it? But so if they're good delegators, I understand that come with three answers first, and then they don't even come anymore because they've already figured it out. But how do you get the team to begin to shoulder the load?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I'm of the opinion that maybe the most important process you should have in your company is a good hiring process.
Mm.
Because if you don't have a good hire,
Mm.
you're not going to get very far, right? You've got to start with good
Mm.
talent. That's a given, right? And what
Mhm.
I've found is if you find someone with good talent, good attitude, good capability, good, you know, I'm on this reasonableness kick lately. Like if somebody's just reasonable, like give me a client that's reasonable, give me a team member who's reasonable, I can work with those people. Just common sense, like think, um I can work with those people. If not, um then not. It's like
Well,
um
let's see how this grid works for you because basically my shtick is I've found a system that works to take a business and make it a business. Just basically throw it in the grinder and out comes a business. But part of that is a lady named Shannon Susko, author of a number of books and developer, designer, founder of Metronome Growth Systems. Metronomics is her platform. It's discipline agnostic. You can do it EOS, you can do Gravitas, you can do Metronome. Doesn't matter because all Vern Harnish and Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. He laid a lot of that stuff out there. So
yeah.
just RTFM, RTFB. Read the full book, read
Yeah.
the full manual. What I'm getting at is in the core of hers, and not unlike a guy named Daniel Priestley. Have you run across him yet?
I have not. I don't.
Oh, he's so cool. He's a smart guy out of Australia. Um, moved to the UK, written three books, but his quote is, "I would never step onto the pitch without a team." Yeah, it does no good for me to go out and play against 11 players. I got
Yep.
11 good players to go play against another 11 good players. But Shannon has embedded in her course the A player guide, checkbook, matrix. And it's one of those six boxes:
Yep.
performance on the bottom and culture on the top, vertical axis. And so you ask, first one is, does this team member live the culture most of the time? Not
Hmm.
all the time, most of the time. And then some of the time and none of the time. Then on the bottom, exceed expectations, meet expectations, misses expectations. So if they don't check top, left, or right, whichever way you're doing your axis, most of the time, culture, live the culture, they basically voted themselves off the bus. They're
Mm.
on their path to becoming hopefully a happy alumni. If they exceed expectations, they check that box. They are the A player. If they meet expectations, they're B, but they're trainable.
Hmm.
So where does that, when you say reasonable, and you think of culture, because I met one of your teammates, Lawrence, and she lives the culture. she's excited about being there. She's excited about the mission. And I imagine she probably also exceeds expectations.
Absolutely.
So, however you found her, we don't want to bottle that process, right? But that simple little test, does that sound like a reasonable test to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, our company values, which basically expresses our culture. They're posted on our website. We um, are constantly celebrating people who um, display those values, live those values, and we're constantly reminding people of what those are. And um, very much, if they're not a match with that, then they're really not a match.
Do you
And
find that they're like a virus, they're like a germ,
oh yeah,
it expels them?
I say the culture spits them out. The culture spits them out. So if you've got a team member that's not living up, everybody knows it, and that person just the culture spits them out. If you got a good culture, you put someone in there on the team that doesn't fit, the culture will spit them out.
That in itself, that you even have it that well developed and communicated, is wouldn't you call that one of these hallmarks of how to get from here to there?
It is. It's the structure, right? Like you need structure at a certain point, and that is, when you start a business, and you asked about the 1 to 2 million. How do you get to the 5 to 10 mark? Well, it's really hard at a certain point, and I see this in CPA firms constantly. It's not always the same point because there can be some different factors that hit, other than revenue, but it tends to be like 1.2, $1.5 million revenue. That's usually where they get to a point where they just can't get it past that spot. And they start to get burned out, and they don't know how to burst through that ceiling. And I mean, sometimes it's a two
What
million
did
dollar
Stan
mark,
call that?
the ceiling of complexity, right?
There you go.
And I think there's multiple ceilings, but in my industry, in accounting industry, um, that's where I see it really commonly hit. And um, you know, me personally, I started this business when it was just me when I started it.
Mhm.
And I don't really gravitate towards structure. I don't. I like that startup, um, fast growth phase of the business, which is unusual. Most people don't like that phase. I actually really do enjoy it. Um, but um, anyway, you get to a point where even someone who's anti-structure, which a lot of people who start businesses are anti-structure, they tend to be more creative and more driven that way. Um, they realize like, as I need somebody to help me put some structure in. And that's why you do things like join Strategic Coach or sign up for EOS or you sign up for our academy, so
Oh
uh,
yeah. So not knowing you were a strategic coach, what do we call it?
let's say member.
Number? Okay. It just opens a whole new branch of communication and how we could potentially share, because this is for the benefit of my target is that 1 to 2 million. How to help them if they choose to make a change,
Right.
somewhere else intentionally. Um, so let me ask you, what's your Colby?
So my Colby, I am a 5.483.
And for the benefit of our audience, 8 is quick start.
It's a high quick start. Yeah.
So you're a medium fact finder, medium follow through, high quick start, and don't ask you to rebuild a 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton more motor, because you'll always end up with extra parts, or you'll
Yeah.
never finish.
Yeah. Or never start.
Or I've learned to never start,
Yeah.
but because I'm an 8 quick start also.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The now next thing, what's your unique ability?
I integrate information well and communicate it well. Um, that's essentially what it is.
Integrate and communicate info well.
Yeah, I gather context quickly and can communicate that well.
Cool. So again, when you go in and you look at the good practice, that's kind of easy to sell. Maybe because you got to find somebody that knows how to run a good business.
Yep.
No, it's not like when the owner leaves, that doesn't, you don't get all that IP. You got to come in and run it right. Uh, which is more valuable? The one that's already running well, or the one that isn't and has more opportunity to grow and change?
Well, it depends on the buyer, right? If a buyer is capable of creating change, if the buyer can be a change agent, uh, then the fixer upper is going to be more valuable to that buyer. If the buyer is not a change agent, then or if the buyer is trying to connect practices into an existing structure, um, they may need something that's structured so that that structure is not foreign to that culture. So it depends on the buyer.
I've got a client that stumbled into a purchase through the Thomson Reuters renewal process. One firm had gotten to the place where they were just going to shut the doors. And the Thomson Reuters guy was talking to my clients and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" So they got the conversation, and taking a, God, we're being recorded here. There are only a few people that recognize this, but a relatively poorly developed culture with a culture that was very strong but not communicated, and different systems. That luckily they all are good people. They're willing to work together, but it's a challenge.
Mhm.
Real challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, God, this is another quick right one. How many have you seen fail? And let me see that with,
Mhm.
I've seen them where either after the fact, the guy paid a lump sum, significant, like 500 or 600 Canadian, but 500 or 600, and the people took the money and then stole the clients back. Then I've seen one where they're on a buying spree, and one they bought, small solo owner, she poisoned the clientele against the transition,
Mm.
called them stupid, referred them to other firms, started.
Yeah.
When you've probably seen these horror stories.
Well, we have, and we actually a long time ago, I don't know how long ago now, but we developed a transition uh, step in our process to where we coach our clients on good best practices for transition. And, we coach them how to um, communicate the sale to clients and to staff and what to focus on in the first, month, 2 months, so on, and how to handle special clients and maybe more complex engagements. So we coach our clients on this. Um, because we saw that it's not intuitive. Transition is not very, it's not as intuitive as most people would believe it to be. So we do a good bit of education for our clients. So fortunately, we haven't seen too many failures. Most of ours have been quite successful, and we focus on fit to begin with. And I think what people don't realize when they're selling their business, especially in this environment where private equity is approaching people, and they think, oh, well, I got an offer, or maybe I got two or three of these firms that are making me offers. Well, that's great. Why do I need an intermediary? Why do I need someone to help? Well, we're doing a, we're going to be on, what is it? Jetpack Workflows, doing a little,
Mhm, mhm,
video summit panel thing, and
mhm.
bring us your, kind of interesting deals. And I was doing some data analysis before I got on with you today, and we had one deal. We had 160 inquiries on one single practice. 160. Now the seller didn't talk to all those people, but we had 12 offers on that deal with, after we had done the filtering of that 160 list. Like that just gives a seller an incredibly higher potential for finding a good fit,
Mm.
right?
Oh, because that's where you were going. You were going with transition coaching, which I want to ask you more about. And you filter for fit. Wow.
Filter for fit. And so if you've got the right person or firm taking over and everyone's aligned with what that transition is going to look like, um, it can go very easily. It can be really smooth.
Mm,
And so we've named our process the seamless succession, and that's part of what we do. But I have seen failures. Um, usually, um, not always, but usually it's the buyer that doesn't do what they need to do to get the firm to make it successful. Either they don't have enough capacity to run the new firm, um, or their expectations are just way off. I tell you, um, we saw a lot of failures probably 5 to 10 years ago, and now it's kind of a cliche about how, the generational differences between
mm,
the
mm,
older people and younger people,
mhm,
and we saw some failures there, just total mismatch of expectations of what it took to run a business. And we saw on some of our smaller firms, we saw some failures there,
mm.
unfortunately. And so then we said, okay, we've got to we've got to try to change our fit our equation to help spot that. And we haven't seen that to
That's
be too big of a problem now, but
so I'm hearing the quality package accuracy kind of float through transition coaching because you're not required to do that. You
no.
do that as part of what you who you are and what you do.
Well, too, we selfishly realized, like, okay, this is good for business too. Like if we do this, we'll get more referrals and we'll get more repeat. We've had several repeat buyers that bought multiple deals from us. Um, we get a lot of referrals from past sellers, and so we fundamentally believe if we do a good job and add value, it will be returned to us in some fashion. So, and
Yeah,
that's
no,
been true.
yeah, yeah. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm catching and making notes. We covered transition coaching, fit, filtering for fit. You, I don't feel like you really answered the question because it was a reason for my business not scaling is I went to Atlanta. Dan Taylor, before he died, was my coach, and he I would come home with all these, just this makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Hey, boss, I'm busy here. Stop bothering me. So, what is the skill you have? Is it a skill you can help others have?
Meaning to implement, like to take an idea and actually do it.
Folks that are either bumping up against a million or want to get there and grow through it, you know they have to have the skill because they can't
Yeah.
do it by themselves. They've
Right.
stopped doing the way they did it because they've hit the ceiling of complexity. There's a whole new, Greg Crabtree calls it the black hole of growth, one from 1 million to 5 million, and 3 million is the really deep, dark one. And they need a team. They need to be able to build that culture, build that responsibility, that accountability, that,
Yeah.
as Shannon Susko says, it's what would you do? WWYD. Your friend did it. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Come with 3 solutions first.
Yeah.
Mine was uh, what 2 places did you go to look first before you came to ask me?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do it? Because you've made it work. You're very cool, calm, collected. You have a good team out there representing the brand. How did you do it?
Oh, you know, um, a lot of hard work. You just have to work hard and stick with it. It's kind of the flywheel principle that's in the book Good to Great. I think that's part of it, right? And we we really, I would say, I had to get the hiring right. That was the hard. I made some bad hires. Oh man, I made some doozies. And I got lucky sometimes. Sometimes I just got lucky. And you know, my 10 years ago, my hiring process, literally somebody walked in my door and I knew them and I'm like, I can let you do a little part-time work. You want to do this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, can you start? And it's like next week. I'm like, all right, you're hired. That was my hiring process for too long. And I got lucky sometimes, but I was also quick to fire people. So if it didn't work out, I would just let them go, you know, and I didn't have a problem letting people go. Um, so I was very informal with that, but then um, fast forward to now, like we've got a tremendously good hiring process. I realize like I should not be at the front end of the hiring process because I just want to get it over with. And whoever's got a pulse can come on in, and that's not good, right? And so now we've got this whole team process where I'm the last person in the line to interview somebody. And I'm kind of like the tiebreaker or um so we've got a very good hiring process, and I really believe that's so key.
Keep saying higher price. Share. Let
Yeah.
the firm owners know
So
they're not
how
going
it's
to steal it from you.
Yeah.
At least
No, I'm happy to share it. It's pretty simple. So um we create a job description, and you know what? Chat GPT is great for job descriptions. It's a great way to use chat. Um, I mean, you need to edit it. Don't just take whatever it says, but
sure, sure, sure.
um, and you need to have a good job ad. Um, and we usually just use Indeed and LinkedIn when we're hiring. And so when those resumes come in, our admin team reviews them. Um, they also have we do a Colby on them.
Uh-huh.
So we know we do a Colby really early in our hiring process, because we know if a job is, something that requires high follow through, I'm only going to hire somebody with high follow through.
Right, 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 right.
So if they don't have that, then I'm not. we're done. We're done with the hiring process. Um, we ask people if they think it's accurate, and usually they do. I mean, Colby's incredibly accurate. It's incredibly accurate. Um, so we do that, and then if they make it through that phase, then they do a phone interview with our admin person. If that phone interview goes well, then they'll get advanced to other team members. So some higher level, like people on our leadership team, will interview them.
You have a uniform set of questions.
We do, yes.
Okay.
Um, and usually we did we went through a program called top grading, which
Okay.
is a hiring process. Yeah, top grading is a great thing to do. We did a little online workshop with them to help develop this hiring process. Um, which they have a really cool torque. Um, have you heard of this
I haven't. I haven't.
threat of reference check?
Oh yeah,
Torque.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So, threat of reference check is very powerful. So, you know, what if we were to call your past employer and what would they say are your best qualities? What would they say you could improve upon? Things, so they kind of know that we're gonna be talking with whoever. Um, that's really good. It's just knowing the red flags too. I think that's the big thing that I took away from that top grading. Um, is there are some red flags that you need to
Like
avoid,
what?
like blaming. Like if you're interviewing a candidate and they blame a previous employer or they blame something that went wrong on someone else, they don't take responsibility, that's a big red flag.
Right, right. I want to commend to you to read the book, The Five Talents That Really Matter.
Five talents. Okay.
Don't know that you'll be able to use it. His name is Barry Conkey, Conchie, Irishman. Very, very sure of his facts because he's not friendly. He's a statistician, and he comes out of the Clifton Strengths
Oh yeah.
poll. But he contributed to and authored books with whoever those folks were. I forget their last name now, but that will open your eyes to the hiring process.
Yeah.
You can subject your candidates to it, but it will give you some hints on how to improve your process.
Yeah. We've had, it's funny, we've had hires. They go they say, wow, that hiring process was very thorough, but I actually appreciate it because I realize that the fact that you guys have vetted me so well gives me confidence that I'm the right fit for this job. So, a good candidate will actually respect a very thorough hiring process.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow, Brandon, we're not out of topics. Of it just I feel like we can put a kind of a wrap on it. You did say something early about small business, and I find people use those terms so loosely and not realizing that it's a relative term.
Yep. Yeah.
So, uh, especially when talking to accountants that had come out of the what's now I call the Final Four, because when I started it was the Big Eight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we work with small businesses or medium-sized businesses. Well, what does that mean? Because some folks think that if they have $1 million revenue business client, that's like a whale.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you I'm actually going somewhere with this. When you think about what type clients a firm needs to aspire to work with, to be not just revenue size, but be able to fully utilize all the talents and bring the value to those clients. What size clientele should they be aspiring to?
Well, I think I'm assuming that you're talking about kind of the typical business client engagement, um,
Oh, okay, okay. So I'll,
rather than an individual,
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so here's my the individual is going to go the way of ChatGPT. The individual you, it's nothing but a race to the bottom. Was please stop building a practice that's a tax sweatshop.
yeah,
So to me, the only way you can build efficiency is you work with businesses. They we follow on with their en route. They know how you work and they're willing to work the way you work.
yeah,
Therefore, you're handling the data and organizing the data such that the compliance piece is not a paper chase.
yeah,
So you work with a business, you make them successful, you coach them to be successful, you help them with their tax, so you're doing profit growth advisory, you're doing tax mitigation advisory, and it's either keep growing or wrap them up and give them an exit. That to me
yeah.
is the model of not the future so much as
It's a stable model. It's just a good, stable, steady business. If you're
right.
running a CPA firm that way or an accounting firm that way, I, I think you have to be a little bit careful about putting one size, kind of have a one size fits all, because I think practices have different business models. Like, um, I know a gentleman that actually came out of our member, came out of our APA group. He's a member, and
Mhm.
he developed a niche practice just for veterinarians, and he may have some small veterinarians in his client base, but um it's still a successful client could be a good client could be a smaller client for him because he's got a machine and he's got really good systems and processes for that type of client.
Numbers smaller is relative. Give me some.
Right, right, right. But I would say, gosh, I haven't, that's a really good question, Troy. I haven't put a ton of thought into it. And um, I would say, I'm just going to say offhand, like $1 million of revenue per year is anything under that. And you're kind of in startup territory there. And that's a different sort of client. Um, But again, I've had clients of ours that we've sold that focused on startups, and they had all these startup like workshops and kind of group things that they would put them in, and startup client was a good client for them. Um, I've had I had an interesting client in British Columbia years ago who had startup clients, and he would take an equity position in some of those clients.
Mm,
And
mm.
he did very well by taking equity in startups, and because some of them hit really well, and he made a lot of money that way. So, um,
That means he had good cash flow. He had a good business that could handle not getting paid everything in cash
yeah,
up front.
yeah, he did. He had a good business. So, I mean, the best ones, the most profitable practices tend to have the most larger clients and more profitable clients.
Larger number.
It's just large, yeah, yeah, you got me. I'm gonna, I mean, 20 million, 50 million annual revenue to me is, when you get up into that mid-market type of client, that's a larger client for
I'm
most accounting firms.
restudying for my series 7 and micro cap in terms of the stock market is under 250 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so here's an event maturation that you know James Ashford in his book Selling to Serve coaches or within that ecosystem gives them a guideline of 3% of revenue is what the finance function should cost. Therefore, typically, if it's going to all be outsourced, then that 30,000 or 3% of a million is your money. That's what you should charge. Don't just, give away your advice. But what do you think about that as far as a revenue target, 3% of gross revenue? So a $10 million firm, their finance function would cost 300 grand. Now they might have internal controllership or an AP or AR type people, but still
Yeah.
they should budget 300 grand. What do you think of that as a
It
absolute
sounds
rule or as a guideline?
it's it sounds reasonable. I haven't had time to analyze it and think through it, but that sounds very reasonable. And you know, most accountants, in my opinion, probably leave a lot of money on the table when it comes to what they're billing.
Oh,
And
not a question.
and what they're and the value that they could be bringing to the table.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Okay, so let's wrap this up with, how about we start there and then begin a wrap up? Uh, Accountants are leaving money on the table. We would agree on that. We agree that a good team and delegation is part of a good accounting practice, if not any business. What other kind of core principles did we tease out here? Structure, transition coaching, fit filter, and hiring process. I anything else to add to that, kind of throw it in a bucket and ask me what it means type points that we want to take away from this conversation?
no, I think a lot of it just you know, if I had to summarize sort of or what's a common thread with all of those, it's being very intentional and focused on the things that really matter. And as any business owner and as a firm owner, there's a lot of noise, and you got to learn how to identify the noise and make it go away and focus on the things that matter. And that's really, in a nutshell, the the not so secret answer to running a good business.
Well, how many books have been written about some flavor of that?
But it's true. I mean,
I know. That's why
you
they're
know,
written and that's why they get read.
it, yeah, but it's not that hard, right? It's like, what are you focusing on? What should you be focusing on? How do you eliminate the things that are noise that you're focusing on and you shouldn't? I mean, it really kind of boils down to that. Um,
That's great.
and
That,
you
that
know,
let's just wrap it right there. I
yeah,
love that. So focus, be intentional. Well, I'm going to add one thing. There's got to be desire. There's, there's got to be that commitment.
yeah, yeah. But if you're not focused, your commitment can waver too, because then you get burned out. And right,
Oh yeah, it's all there, and they're great, great. Thanks for sharing that. I hope that our audience got something from that, because you are in the trenches. You're seeing the real thing, uh, which I think is so valuable. Thanks very much for sharing, and see you next time.